There's a cybersecurity founder somewhere near you right now who is booked solid till October. They have 7 NIS2 projects, 5 DORA assessments, a full calendar, and their phone is ringing nonstop. And 12 months from now, that same founder will be starting from scratch. Seriously. And they won't quite understand why. Here's why. The compliance wave is real. The NIS2 deadline of October 2026 is looming. DORA enforcement has been active since January this year. And as of the time of recording this video, it's been reported that only 16% of businesses required to comply with NIS2 are confident they actually are. That's from Cybersmart's 2026 research. The gap between where buyers need to be and where they are, that's the phone ringing in your office right now. The work is legitimate. The buyers have regulatory pressure and a real deadline. So the pipeline feels full. And that's exactly what makes this worth talking about. You see, every piece of content in this market is saying the same thing. Capitalize on the compliance demand, package it up, get your team trained. This is the moment to be doing that. And they're right, that the demand is there. It is. Where they stop short is what compliance-led growth does to your business model over the next 3 years, not just over the next few months. So let me walk through that because it's not obvious until it's already happened. The first thing, compliance certifications are binary, pass or fail. When the output is standardized like that, buyers have one way to compare suppliers, which is price and speed. 10, 15, 20 years of your expertise compresses down to who can get us to Cyber Essentials Plus fastest. The work hasn't changed. The market's relationship to the work has because of the impact of those regulatory deadlines. Which brings us to the second point. Compliance is deadline driven, which means your pipeline is calendar driven. The phone rings when a regulation is hot, it goes quiet when the certificate is on the wall and the deadline is passed. And you've probably already felt a version of this, that retainer pitch that didn't go anywhere because the client said, but we're certified now, or what would we be paid for? Like, that's this cycle completing. You just didn't have a name for it yet. And think back to when GDPR was coming in. It was kind of the same then. And the third thing is compliance delivery is judgment intensive, which makes it hard to delegate, hard to package, and maybe even hard to deliver without you personally, unless you clone yourself or pay someone a really good wage to do it in your place. So the compliance rush doesn't reduce your founder dependence, it actually deepens it. Every project runs through you because it has to. You get busier and become a bigger bottleneck at exactly the same time. And the knock-on is this. If every project runs through you, you're selling your time. And if you've got a team, you're buying their time and selling it on. Either way, you're trading hours for money. And hours are finite. So the compliance rush doesn't just deepen your founder dependence, it puts a hard ceiling on what your business can ever earn because there are only so many hours in the week and only so many weeks in the year. And that path makes you busy but not growing. And I'm guessing that might sound a little bit familiar. Now, stay with me for a minute because I want to take you back to 1896, the Klondike gold rush. Yep, Yukon, Canada. Word spreads, there's gold in the creek beds, and within 2 years, 100,000 people are making the journey up north. The conditions were freaking brutal, but the gold was real, it was there, and there was enormous demand for it. And the question that doesn't get asked enough wasn't who struck gold, but who actually got wealthy. Because a lot of people who struck gold didn't get wealthy. And the people who got wealthy, not the miners broke their backs in freezing water for seams and pockets that mostly played out. And there were 3 main dynamics between the miners. First, the best creek bed claims were staked within months of the 1896 discovery. So latecomers, those who arrived in 1897-98 rush, they were left competing for whatever ground was left, which was mostly played out or marginal. So that might be like an emerging cybersecurity company coming out. You're already in that late rush looking for what's played out. The second is there was claim jumping, stealing or fraudulently registering someone else's claim. That was rampant. So much so the Canadian government eventually brought in the NWMP Mounties to try to contain it. But corruption in the claims registry was widespread. And the third Once the surface gold was gone, only miners who could afford industrial equipment could process the deeper ground, which rapidly pushed individual prospectors out and handed the remaining gold to bigger mining companies. So the pattern was scarcity drove competition, which drove price cutting on labor and supplies, which drove desperation, which handed the advantage to whoever had capital. And the people who had the capital, it wasn't the fucking miners at all. It was the merchants. The people who were selling the shovels, the boots, the boarding house beds, the ropes, the flowers, the buckets, whatever, all the infrastructures the miners needed delivered to the doorstep of a captive audience. That's who made the money. And here's what I'd call the minus versus the merchant. And I want you to sit with which side of this you're actually on from a cybersecurity consultancy perspective, because I think this will give you a better inkling into what's actually going on with this compliance rush. The miner chases the visible demand, takes every compliance call, prices competitively, because that's what the market is doing and that's what people are telling them to do in the market. And they build a business that is entirely dependent on the next regulatory deadline, with the founder behind every engagement. And when the rush passes, the miner starts over. That's the miner. The merchant, on the other hand, they use the compliance event as a door. They get in front of the buyer, the compliance urgency is opened up, and then has a different conversation. So a little bit like somebody goes into the shop in the Yukon and they look for a bucket and then they buy all the other things that they might need because they don't know that they need them yet. So something like this, you might say, I can get you to Cyber Essentials Plus. And before we scope that, I want to ask you something. What is this certification making you worried about? Because the certificate deals with the deadline. And I'm wondering whether you'd rather build something that doesn't leave you back in this conversation 12 months from now. The merchant position doesn't expire when the certificate does. Now, here's the thing about relationship building that gets completely lost in the compliance rush. The client coming to you with a NIS2 project wants a supplier who'll get them compliant quickly and professionally without any drama, and you give them exactly that. But if you're only ever the person who delivered the compliance project, you're a vendor. A good one, sure, but still a vendor, and the relationship ends when the project does. The founders who are going to come out of this wave ahead are using the compliance project as the start of a relationship, not the whole of it. They're delivering what the client asked for and then having a different conversation about what the client actually needs, which is rarely another compliance project in 18 months. So really what I'm saying here is sell them what they want and then give them what they need once you get in the door. What they want is that certificate. What they need is a business that doesn't feel this exposed every time a new regulation lands on their desk. Never mind every time hackers find a new way to penetrate their systems, or AI gets even faster than 27 seconds to hack someone. And if you can be the person who helps them think about that, not as a pitch, just as a genuine conversation, because maybe they don't know what they don't know, well, then you're building something that doesn't have an expiry date on it. That's the difference between a project and a client. A client relationship isn't capped by your calendar, but a project is. And long term, guess which one is more profitable and scalable? Yeah, the relationship. Before I get to what the merchant position actually looks like, there are two mistakes I see cyber founders make in a market like this one, and both of them feel very reasonable and real in the moment. And the first one is treating the compliance rush as a positioning strategy. Compliance demand is a market condition. We do compliance describes a service category shared by thousands of other people who do something similar. And when the rush passes, there's nothing left for you to stand on. You can't build a distinctive business on a category that price compresses by design. And the second one is, and this is the most dangerous one, waiting until after the rush to build something different. The logic feels solid because you're busy. You know, you have cash coming in on this wave now, and you're like, oh, I'll think about positioning later after October once things get quieter again. But the founders who come out of this stronger are building their merchant position now while the rush is happening. They're using the compliance urgency to get in front of the buyers that they'd otherwise never meet and planting a different flag in those conversations. Waiting until October passes means starting cold with a market that has already categorized you, or worse, going back to those clients where you were in, out, job done, and with maybe a little bit of a hint of desperation off you because now you're trying to get business back. Now, maybe you've not thought about this rush in this way before, and there's a reason that is possibly the case. Neuroscience research explains that the brain uses frequency of exposure as a shortcut for strategic importance. So, what that means is when you see compliance opportunities appearing everywhere on every other LinkedIn post, blog, email, trade article, your brain reads, keep hearing about this as this is where the opportunity is. I must do more of that. It's very normal to feel that way. It's pattern recognition doing exactly what it evolved to do. It just wasn't built for business strategy. So you're not making a bad decision and you're not thinking clearly. You're making a predictable decision because your brain is doing its job in an environment it wasn't designed for. The compliance rush feels like the answer because you're just seeing it everywhere. That's the mechanism, and knowing it is the first step to getting outside of it. Most cyber founders hear compliance demand and optimize for volume. The founders building something that lasts hear the same demand and ask a different question. What is the buyer actually afraid of, and how do I address that in a way that outlasts the certificate project? Because the fear doesn't go away when they get their certificate. It just goes underground until the next thing happens. Maybe they see the next big breach in the news headlines, or the next time the board asks an uncomfortable question that they don't have an answer to. And if you're the person who helped them think through that, not just the technical delivery or the compliance bit, but the strategic conversation underneath those elements, you're the first person they're going to think of and exactly who they're going to reach out to, not just before October, every single time. That's the merchant position. It's built on a relationship, not a deadline. If you want to know where your business actually sits relative to these two patterns, minor or merchant, the business growth diagnostic linked in the description takes about 3 minutes to complete and shows you exactly that. And it's definitely worth doing before October. In a gold rush, the miners get busy, the merchants get wealthy. Go be the merchant.